Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Mark, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Yuri. This is I'm so excited that we are finally talking.
Yes, I know. So am I. It's just kind of how it works out sometimes. But I'm so glad that we are finally able to connect over these last couple of months and to get this on the books. So thank you so much for sticking with me on those.
Oh yeah, and me too. And it's just been, I've just been kind of excited about getting to know you better through this medium and also your audience.
Wonderful. So with that in mind, how do you describe yourself and what you do?
Well, the simplest way that I describe myself is we work with executives from middle to large organizations primarily on helping them transform their businesses in a way that links the culture and the business together to get breakthrough results. And it's really about getting breakthrough results. It's doing it quickly, not taking years to make that happen, but doing it quickly. And what's interesting about it is that what most people that go through our process and our approach tell me afterwards is that, wow, they were able to use that with their families and for them as individuals beyond just what it did for the organization and the people in the organization.
Oh, wow. That training sounds absolutely amazing then, where you're able to translate that not just for the business side, but their entire lives.
Yes, because in our view, and in my view, I guess, there's no separation. It's like how we show up is the way we show up everywhere.
Right.
And we can create separation sometimes through our own compartmentalization, but in reality, we're the same person showing up. And, it's kind of like how you do anything is how you do everything. It's that concept. And
right.
So what we're doing when we work with an organization is teaching them how do you transform so that you can accomplish whatever dreams you have in a way that's practical, in a way that makes sense, in a way that is tangible enough that we can come back in 3 to 6 months later and measure results.
Yeah. So in hearing you speak about this, it makes sense when I look at your education that you went to school for applied psychology, and it seems like you actually are, using a lot of that in your training. But what originally got you interested in studying psychology?
Well, it's interesting. I think what gets anyone interested in studying psychology is healing thyself, and dealing with all my own traumas and compartmentalizations and challenges in the world. And I wanted to understand, where in the hell does that come from? Right. So, I think that's what got me interested in studying psychology. But the other part is I've always believed that people can create a better self, like a better form of themselves. And it doesn't mean that we need correcting. It's not coming from a place of, gee, you're a bad self, now you have to create a good self. It's much more that we're already a great self. How do we remove those obstacles that keep us from knowing that at a core level, at a foundational level? Because I don't think it's really about adding new skills per se, or I don't know. It's not about something new that we have to add on to ourselves as much as it is the greatness is there, but we block it through our beliefs, through our negativity, through our self-judgment mostly. And as much as we can remove that, we're free and truly free to accomplish whatever our dreams are. And that's true for organizations. I mean, I'm not there so much giving them something to do as much as I am removing all of their, limiting beliefs and fears and trepidations so that they can fully show up 100% and play the game they want to be in their most powerful self.
Mm-hmm. So in looking at your company IMPAQ, it looks like you founded it while you were still attending university. Is that correct?
Not quite.
Okay.
So IMPAQ, I got my first master's degree from UC Irvine in organization development. It was in management, but my emphasis was organization development, which is what gave me the foundation to work with organizations. Okay. And I was in business for about 10 years, and officially started IMPAQ, my current company, in 1986, a long time ago, and then decided that I needed to shore up more strength in my understanding of people and how people work, because I was, getting into more change efforts. So in 89 and 90 is when I went to get my master's in applied psychology, which is now called spiritual psychology in terms of their degrees.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I gotcha. So, but even then, you were still running this company while going to university. What was that like, and how did it change? Because as you mentioned, you started it before you went and got your degree in applied psychology, and then while you were doing it, and then after. So how did your company evolve from before university, during, and after?
Well, it was a huge evolution, because what I learned in the applied psychology program is models and concepts for how individuals transform themselves. And I've always been a believer that in organizations, we're just made up of individuals. So if we have a fallacy about transformation or change management, let's just say, based on theories that are out there, because they don't actually apply to individuals in the same way, then it's not going to sustain. Sure. So it gave me a whole nother lens. Let me give you an example. So often what people do and what organizations do is, when we want to make a change for the better, we focus on the physical changes, the physical doing of the change. If it's losing weight, then I go on a diet. If it's to get stronger, I do an exercise program. And what we don't realize is that we have a natural equilibrium that is always in play, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So when we move the physical to an improved state, but we don't at the same time work on our mental beliefs, thoughts, etc., or our emotions, reactions to things, then what happens is the short-term gain of physical improvement based on willpower will not sustain. It's the mental and emotional that will actually have it spring back to its original position, like a rubber band snaps back when you stretch it.
Okay, that makes sense. It's kind of like and it's been a while since I watched this, but like the contestants on The Biggest Loser.
Yes.
Like they make these magnificent transformations, and then a few months later they go back to where they were before.
Right, because it can't just be physical.
Right.
And that's true for all of us. That, no matter what change, if we're trying to start a new business, then obviously we have to do physical things, to create that business. But are we mentally preparing ourselves for being a business owner? Are we emotionally preparing ourselves for being a business owner? Those are the areas that will come back to bite us we can do those physical things to set up our business, get our license, get cards, all the things that set ourselves up on the physical level. But if we haven't handled the mental and emotional, then it's not going to sustain. And the same is true in organizations. And it's one of the dilemmas of most organizational change efforts is they don't know how to work on all three levels simultaneously, which is what we do that's different.
Great. So, I have to ask this question then. So how do you prepare yourself emotionally to be part of that physical as a business owner or a leader in a new organization?
Yeah, it's actually fairly simple but not necessarily easy. And it's simple because it's how you get off track emotionally. So in other words, how do we go into reactivity emotionally while we're making a change effort, while we're going through change? And that could be fear of failure. It could be fear of losing control. It could be fear of not doing it right. It could go into self-judgments, which is a little bit of belief, but also has an emotional component to it. It could be that we and again, the mental and the emotional are somewhat, combined. So it could be we're not going fast enough, which then puts me into fear that we're not going to be successful. It's how do we walk ourselves through that so those dominating fears and negative reactions and judgments don't take over from our sense of purpose of what we're trying to create. Because that's what nails us.
Yeah. So I guess to do that, are there exercises you have or like ways that people can practice? Because obviously, there's doing it and preparing it are kind of two different things. So how do you set up your clients for that success?
Well, the first thing that we do to set that up is we keep them so focused on where they're going, they don't have much time to evaluate the frustration along the way. Like we keep it moving. The second thing that we do is we set it up in a way that we develop recovery plans that each individual and the team creates together to say, hey, when we get off track, when we go back to old habits, because it's going to happen when we get stressed and overwhelmed, what's our recovery plan? If you don't create the recovery plan ahead of time, then what you're doing is crisis management in the moment, and we're not our best selves then because we're already restricted from the incident that caused us to go into fear or to cause us to tighten up. So what we do, and it's what all athletes do, by the way, like they all practice. If you look at any athletic team or even music group, they practice failure so that they know what to do differently if that were to occur. And they're already prepared ahead of time. Why? Because they don't want to have to think about it when it happens. And so the problem with most organizations and most people is we like to get it right the first time. Well, that's nice, but that isn't life. Right. Because we have to gain from the experience and learn from the experience. And that means we're going to be making mistakes. We're going to get off track. We're going to go back to old habits. And that is not negative. That doesn't mean we're not being accountable and we don't have enough willpower. It just means that our humanness showed up. Now, let's go back to our recovery plan, institute that to get ourselves back on track. And now we keep the momentum forward rather than going and slipping backward.
Interesting.
And it's really key to have a support system. So that's why we are always doing this in teams. Because we need to be support systems for each other. There's nothing worse than going on a diet of eating, boring broccoli and chicken while your family is eating pizza and chocolate cake. Like that just doesn't work well. Right. So we get the whole family to eat the boring chicken and the broccoli and, and having the one night out where they get to celebrate. So it's like whatever it is, we're doing it together and we've talked about it ahead of time and we help each other through whatever our particular vulnerabilities are.
Okay. Good to know. So you've also written a book called Be State. Tell me about that. And why did you want to write a book?
Well, it's actually my 5th book. So,
Okay.
and you talked about one of the changes that I made through the program on applied psychology. And again, this is through the University of Santa Monica, which is just an outstanding institution. I had a major fear of writing books.